Beverly Hills Cop 3. 3.
Let me see a camera, please.
With Beverly Hills Cop 3, there were a lot of great ideas thrown around. At one point, the rumor was that the legendary screenwriter Robert Towne had a scenario where Eddie was going to come to Beverly Hills and take a job as the head of a security force for a Japanese-run studio.
I was told that there were 4, maybe even 5 other attempts to find what the third Beverly Hills Cop picture would be.
Over the course of 2 or 3 years putting this thing together, and maybe 3 or 4 different producers, you know, and you'd get the piece to a certain level with a certain writer and with a certain producer, and then you might say, well I want to change this, and then some people might have to leave, and we were constantly like fixing, and the movie would be off, then it would be back on. And
it's not that easy to put together these sequels, because you have to secure the cooperation of the cast and the key cast members, the rights holders. You have to get the script. The most important part of any movie is always the script, it's always the page, what's on that page.
There was another scenario that had John and I going to London to extradite a prisoner who escapes. We get in trouble, and Eddie has to come over to London and send up the English, and that sounded great, and that didn't happen. So I think throughout that period they were developing something. They just couldn't find something that everybody wanted to do.
They just couldn't get it together. There were various problems. Eddie's availability, script problems.
When the studio announced that they wanted to do the third picture, Eddie was kind enough to remember that we had some fun earlier and it did some good work, and he told the studio that he wanted me to write this picture and that he wanted Joel Silver, who we had worked with together before, to be the producer. Joel was in Europe, and I was here, and Joel said, meet me in New Jersey and we'll drive over to Eddie's house together and tell him, you know, what the idea is for the movie. And I said, well, Joel, we don't have the idea for the movie yet. And he said, oh, it's like a week from now. By then, you'll have it, and you'll tell it to me in the limousine on the way over to his house. That very week, there was a very high-minded, very serious, but still historically funny article in the New York Times about the Universal City Walk. So suddenly, theme parks were controversial, and people were saying, well, what does a theme park mean? And this seemed to be a great, uniquely Southern California environment to put Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley from Detroit, drop him into this.
And this was the first script that we got where we had a smart crime, and we had a new kind of villain that no one had seen. It's not like a villain with an accent that's in all the action pictures, and Axel was a man, and it was back to the character again. It was back to reality in the picture.
In the interim, Joel had to go off and follow a commitment to another picture, and Bob Ramey and Mace came aboard.
Mace Neufeld and I were producing partners under contract to Paramount, and in '94, Beverly Hills Cop 3 was on the fast track, and it did not have a producer. And so Sherry Lansing and Stanley Jaffe, who was also at the head of the studio at that time, asked Mace and I to produce it.
8 months to a year before we started shooting the movie, Landis got involved, and he started getting involved with the writers and helping them shape the script, and they would do something, and I would come in and go, no, Axel wouldn't do this, or Axel wouldn't say that, or Axel wouldn't. And it was cool. It was a collaborative effort.
Eddie Murphy was very involved. We made several trips to Eddie's house in New Jersey. I think he lives at a place, as he calls his house, Bubble Hill. And I was fascinated to go there. Why it was called Bubble Hill, I really don't know. But Eddie's a great guy, and we got along famously. And we went back several times with Steve and with John and myself, and did a lot on the script.
But the one thing we kept groping for was, what are the bad guys doing at the theme park? And I'm telling you, we had this picture scheduled, we had this picture budgeted, and we still did not know what the villains were doing for the longest time. We went around and around and around because there were all kinds of things that they could be doing, you know, behind this innocent facade.
I looked at the other 2 cop films, and Beverly Hills Cop 1 was originally written for Sylvester Stallone. It's a straight police action thriller that, because of Marty Brest, the director, and Eddie Murphy, became very funny. In fact, I would say all of the humor in that movie was not scripted.
And the first film is a classic movie, you know, so you always try to use that as a standard, try to make a movie as good as, and I think we made a picture as good as.
What's been very interesting and unique for me to be able to experience in my career is watching 3 different directors approach the similar genre film in the series and see how much their inherent personalities, even more than they realize, comes through.
John's style is real interesting, especially the way he works with actors. He's big in casting. You know, part of being a great director is your casting. You bring people that you know are going to deliver, and that's what he does.
Oh, I had an amazing time working with Mr. Landis because he was just free and fun-loving, and there was no pressure. And I must say, that was one of the jobs where I felt like I had to please.
It was just a really good set and a really good feeling between John and myself and the people that John was working with.
Hello, my name's Axel Foley. I'm looking for Billy Rosewood.
Welcome to the Beverly Hills Police Department. To continue this message in English, press £1. For Spanish, press 2 star.
The first film enjoyed the uniqueness of Southern California to such a degree. The second picture seemed to be looking for another juicy Southern California target, and this seemed to be the fattest one of all.
I'm a big Disney freak, so it was great fun to use that role model and create our own park, Wonder World.
Wonder World is, I guess, the closest thing you can say. It's like a Disneyland kind of place, you know. Disneyland wasn't gonna let us blow Disneyland up, so we had to come up with Wonder World.
Of course, Paramount owned the amusement park, so that certainly helped. We had carte blanche.
And we had the keys.
Landis would always break me up because they'd say, "Where's John?" He was off on a ride.
Like 4 o'clock in the morning, you have to do an action sequence, and you can't get it together. And Landis puts you on a roller coaster to wake you up before the scene.
I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to come out and say it, that John and I were constantly over loggerheads, over and over, fighting over the names of the imaginary cartoon characters for this imaginary media company.
Okie Doki's my favorite, that blue elephant. Okie Doki's one of Uncle Dave's beloved characters, just like Walt had Mickey and Minnie and Goofy. Uncle Dave has Tippy Turtle and Little Bear and Big Bear, and I had great fun because I got to design those.
Hey, y'all cover me. I'm going in with Ty. No!
I think, for me, the strongest part of that film was the opening scene in the chop shop, and the ensuing chase is really strong.
This is very much like an action thriller. This is a lot bigger. The crime is larger. The villains are, there are more of them, and they ultimately save the day.
I think it was important for Eddie to stretch Axel Foley, and I think he wanted to be kind of an action hero.
I'm really happy to do, because I grew up watching stuff like James Bond, you know, because I'm born in 1961 and grew up watching James Bond and Rocky and all that stuff, and it's cool to have one of those characters that you can go back and do, and it's real comfortable to do, and the audience digs them, and you can have fun doing it. It's fun to be able to have a character like this.
I didn't meet Eddie Murphy until my first day of shooting, and my first day of shooting was the last scene of the movie. So that, for me, was a lot of pressure. Because I did my homework, and I knew kind of maybe sort of how it was going to end, but at the same time, he was in the wheelchair, and I had to speak like, get very close, so our faces are like side by side. And I had no one introduced me to him until I arrived, so it's like, and action, and there we were. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I have to sort of seduce Eddie Murphy in his ear on my first day of shooting. And I'm a big fan of his, so I had to get over my little butterflies and whatnot, but he was a sweetheart.
Eddie is always doing improvisation. Eddie is always on when he's, when he's on, he's always on. He's a comic genius. I just love looking back at Comedy Central, watching his old Saturday Night Live clips, watching his old movies. I mean, he's a master.
I don't think you could do the movie without Judge, you know, because he's that one guy that trusts Axel. You know, if Axel came out to California and nobody listened to him and he didn't have an emotional relationship with anybody, he'd just be like this loose cannon in California. But there's this one cop who's like Axel. He's the California version of Axel. Axel in a suit with ears. Judge, you know I love you.
Judge playing Billy Rosewood, who's a sweet character, just an enthusiastic officer who is, you know, Judge is a big man. It's funny because of the people he plays, you don't think of him as a physically large guy, but he's a starker, he's a big guy.
Well, Judge, of course, had reprised his role here, and Judge was a pleasure to work with. I think he thoroughly enjoyed doing this.
What, they promote you to captain or something?
I'm DDO JSIOC.
The JGJOC? What is that?
It stands for Deputy Director of Operations for Joint Systems Interdepartmental Operational Command.
Judge was really funny with the delusions of grandeur and power that he had.
I didn't want to keep playing the same guy. He was older chronologically, so with experience he was going to be different. So it's one thing that I begged Landis to appreciate, and luckily for me, he agreed. I said, John, the first time he desperately yearns to be in the game, the second time he's in the game, and the third time, why do we have him control the game, control something very powerful that he can really screw up? And John Landis liked the idea and developed that whole scenario of me being DDI-JSIOC, which I can't believe I still remember, Deputy Director of Operations for Joint Systems Interdepartmental Operational Command. The only reason I remember this is because it was so painfully hard to learn.
Judge Reinhold, I tell you the funny part, when we are actually, the fight scene breaks out, and we're in that room that's filled with ice, and we're supposed to be frozen, and well, it was actually smoke. So we had to deliver our dialogue, holding each other, trying not to cough and pretending like we were freezing, but each moment I was like, I'm just gonna cough, but we were able to make it through it.
What the hell happened?
It's the coolant safety system! Protects the mainframe in case of fire!
Well, how do we get it open?
We can't! Not from this side!
This isn't something I'm particularly proud of, but at the time of the making of that movie, I was on this really obsessive health kick, and I was drinking excessive amounts of carrot juice and apple juice and all sorts of vegetable juice concoctions. Well, John called up my manager, John Landis called up my manager, furious at my makeup artist, who'd been my makeup artist for years, that I was looking orange. We couldn't figure it out. When you see the movie, you could see what looks like excessive makeup is really an excess of carrot juice. And I couldn't figure it out until after the movie, that I was orange, man. The palms of my hands were orange.
Mr. DeWald.
Send him in. Mr. Foley, Mr. DeWald.
Fuck! Motherfucker!
There's only basically two parts in a movie, and that is the hero and the villain. And, you know, unless you're Eddie Murphy or unless you're a major star, Mel Gibson or something, it's pretty rare that you get a shot at playing the hero. So to be offered the villain is great.
I thought Tim Carhart was a really good antagonist. He was a great villain.
The villain in this picture, DeWald, is a very cold, scary, but, you know, amusing in many ways type of a villain.
Offset, he was amazing, you know, funny all over the place, but as soon as we got on set, you know, he was the bad guy, so the switch was the thing that took me for a loop, because I'm like, okay, he's really into this. So he was just always, you know, Mr. DeWald, and just very professional, and this and that, with the sinister eye thing going on.
I have gotten more, you know, recognition from Ellis DeWald. And the weird thing is that they know the name of the character. Normally, I walk down the street somewhere and they go, yeah, you're that guy. He was in, yeah, you were good. But this, they're like, Ellis DeWald. Ellis DeWald. And I'm like, wow, I don't even remember the name of that character, but you know. Oh, yes, Ellis DeWald.
My name is Axel Foley. I'm a Detroit police officer, and it is a tremendous surprise for Mr. DeWald to have me standing right next to him right now. You know, right now I can feel his body tingling.
There was a scene that I was Ellis DeWald, and I was getting the Lawman of the Year award in a big banquet hall. And I do remember that Eddie came out and basically did a stand-up routine for all of these thousands of extras who were, you know, being extras in the scene. And I just thought that was really sweet. He didn't have to do that. And, you know, he kind of made everybody feel as if they were a somebody.
I don't believe this! Aquel, buddy! You crazy thing! What you doing here?
Serge.
Serge.
Everybody remarked upon Serge, or is it Serge, or what? I know that's the whole joke that no one can pronounce it. And really, we all really wanted Serge to come back.
Bronson Pinchot, that was hilarious. And that was quite a bit of improvisation.
I talked with Bronson at length on the phone, and I told him certain plot points that had to be made, because in fact he does arm Axel in a certain way, and there's certain plot points that had to be stated. But once he understood what those plot points were, he just improvised. In fact, it's sad because you can't, he comes at a point, his first scene comes at a point in the movie where you can't sort of stop and do the Serge show in the middle of Beverly Hills Cop. But as it is, it's a long scene and hysterical, and we had to use, gosh, we used less than 5% of the good stuff.
It was fun. It was reminiscent of the first time that we worked together. You kind of stand there and let him do what he does, you know. It's entertaining. I think he's very funny.
It was really great to work with Bronson Pinchot again in the third one. His character was perfect for John Landis's sensibility. John really just let him run with the ball. And again, it was one of the few times where I've ever seen Eddie not be able to keep a straight face.
The Annihilator 2000 is constructed of a lightweight aluminum alloy combined with the new polymer technology, making it totally resistant to corrosion.
Now who the hell is gonna buy that shit?
Are you joking? This is a lie. I'm selling hundreds of these. It's on back order.
Get the fuck out of here!
No, I cannot!
That had to have been John Landis's invention, that Annihilator 2000, because that seems to be right out of his sensibility.
The Annihilator 2000 is like the gun that's the latest craze in Beverly Hills. Like, Zsa Zsa has one. Everybody has one of these guns that does everything.
Trust me, it's not that far from what goes on in Beverly Hills. That's why we make these movies.
Well, John, I want you to meet a friend of mine, Axel Foley. Axel, John Flint.
How are you? Yeah, I've heard about you. You're from Detroit, right? Taggart used to talk about you.
John Ashton, unfortunately, was not available at the last minute, so Hector came in, and I think did a great job of, creating another veteran cop.
I did enjoy working with Hector. He made it easy to confide in, and he knew that I was hurting not working with John. He didn't take that personally at all. I learned a lot of things from Hector. At one point, he told me, kid, you don't have to work hard. You got to work smart.
Hector Elizondo, he really was such a pleasure to work with, and he used to call me the hair actor. I would come in the morning with, a full head of hair, and of course he doesn't have a full head of hair, and he's very jealous of that. So he would constantly make fun of my hair, and so I became very self-conscious about this hair business, and so I would be, before every scene, I'd be like, God, I wonder what Hector's gonna think.
Axel, what the hell are you doing here?
And the one thing I wanted to do in the fight scene, because they wanted me to be originally in the script like a damsel in distress. And I was like, oh, please, 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 John, don't make me do that. Just let me get one hit in. He's like, are you sure? So we shot all these scenes without me doing anything. Then finally he goes, okay, Teresa, I don't want to hear it anymore. You can do something. I got to punch one of the bad guys in the face.
Teresa she was really nervous. It was her first big part.
I remember Teresa was extremely sexy. On and off the screen. I mean, I was a little bit infatuated, I have to admit, and, kind of fancied myself that I kind of had a chance at something developing. What a fool I was.
When DeWalt took over, he stuck me down here on what he calls Park Safety Watch. He thinks he took me out of the loop, but as long as I have a computer, I can still access most of what's in the mainframe.
My favorite scene was the scene in the boiler room when we were talking about the Happy Force and the blueprint. And for me, I was going to be close and personal with like one of the best living comedians that there are, and I've got to do this comedic timing with him. And so we rehearsed it, but as soon as it came, I think we shot our rehearsal actually. And then once we did it a couple more times, I was sort of taken aback with the ease that I had, because the butterflies were gone, and I just really felt that he was supporting me, that Eddie was really there for me, and we were going back and forth with this sort of offbeat pass that Janice is making at him.
Teresa Randall was wonderful. John Tenney, a very talented young man that jumped on board, and John Travolta's brother, Joey Travolta.
John Landis is a good friend of mine, and I had done Oscar for him and Amazon Women on the Moon. And after that, we had just remained friends, and we were kind of like on a director's exchange program. He's been in 2 of my movies, I've been in 3 of his movies, so now I owe him 1.
Did you hear? Somebody shot Dave Thornton.
Somebody shot Uncle Dave? Is there a TV here?
John's thing is always to pack his pictures wall to wall with cameos of other directors. It's sort of the opposite of Hitchcock. Hitchcock puts himself in a cameo. Landis puts everybody he knows who is a director.
Landis knows a bunch of directors, and they're all friends, and when he does pictures, they're always like, you know, in each other's movies. I think it's an inside joke with the directors to be in each other's pictures.
Martha Coolidge worked with us when we were shooting some of the hotel scenes, the ballroom scene.
I thought I was going to get work from it, especially from Martha Coolidge, but she hasn't hired me yet.
He has such a great respect for the old-timers, and he always gives them work, and I think that's great.
George Lucas is in the picture. He's getting ready to get in line, and I cut in front of him, and I jump in the line and get in this ride. Right before I get on the ride, I whisper to George, "Put me in the next Star Wars." Then I get in right off.
Don't, Jesus!
The spider ride, which is that triple Ferris wheel, this giant ride, was the most complicated thing to shoot because of the special effects, and the stunts are amazing.
A lot of that stuff that is really Eddie climbing around on that thing. I mean, he's got a safety rig which you can't see, but he really was doing the high and dizzy, and I think that made it play real.
I climbed up this ride, and I was really on this thing that was spinning around. It was really high up, so everybody in the crew was like, "Oh!" So that looked kind of cool.
Axel is being heroic in a real classic, you know, good guy kind of way. I mean, for me, the most important thing to make Axel was sympathetic. And he's manly, and he's courageous, and he's heroic, and he's tough, and very funny. And ultimately, one of the ways, of course, you make a hero sympathetic is he rescues somebody.
I really enjoyed the fist fight scene at the very end in the boat.
Some of the stunt stuff we were doing with the fight, and that's the most dangerous, because you got like a machine gun in your hand, you're in a fight scene with somebody, and every day somebody's getting a scratch or a bruise, or a punch doesn't get pulled and somebody gets hit.
Any chance you can explain any of this to me?
You guys okay?
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
He needs medical attention.
As Joel Silver has said many times, if we could figure out how to make these sequels first and skip the first one, every movie would be a hit.
I never go into any film expecting anything, but I was not even surprised. I was elated at the response to it.
In general, we had a very good time making this movie. It was a good shoot. John is a terrific person to work with, and Eddie was in good spirits, and it was great.
I enjoyed Wonderworld a lot, and I enjoyed taking the character of Axel Foley that Marty and Eddie created and making him grow up.
Well, there's been rumors for a couple years that they're developing a story. I don't know what the elements are, and I think the public would like to see it, and I know that I would like to do it.